I'm doing okay. I've been working from home for almost 7 weeks, and we're reopening the offices. Our South Florida office is May 26th. So, but with limited access, you know. So.
Well, I actually went out and shopped today. Like I went to a store.
Oh, wow. Okay. Nice.
Yes. Went to the UPS store.
Wow.
That was a banner day for me.
That's why I guess Palm Beach County had opened up some of the stores and restaurants a little bit. So
yeah,
they haven't done that in Miami-Dade and Broward yet. Next week, I think.
Yeah, I think so. Home Goods is still closed. I was surprised.
Really?
Yep, they are. I guess they said they're probably getting it ready for. It's tough in there because it's so crowded. It'll be interesting to see how people can maneuver and stay distanced.
No, not yet.
Well, that's
So the one in Martin
important.
County is open, and we actually went just for something to do yesterday. And it was fine. It was, they have all the little one-way arrows on the aisles, trying to get people to go in one direction, and seemed okay.
Did people actually follow that, Keith? Because I've been in Publix. I've only been to Publix once.
I will be honest, just force of habit. I find myself, even at Publix, going the wrong way, not because I'm trying to, fight the system. I just force a habit and don't realize it.
Well, I'm trying to find the mayonnaise or the aluminum foil. I don't know where I'm going, so I don't look down on the ground. I'm looking at the shelves.
Exactly. Yeah.
I'm not paying any attention about the arrows.
It happens.
So do we have Frank D'Ambra? Because I only see 9 people right now.
We have Frank.
I'm here.
Hi, Frank.
I think we have Lori too.
Yeah, my screen can only hold 9 thumbnails. So I whoever gets on first, I can see.
Hi guys, Jim Tercey, 104 Yacht Club Place is here. Miss Brennan Abbey, maybe you can drag the screen over to see more?
I'm not quite sure which way you want me to drag the screen over to.
I can't see, but normally if you go to one of the edges, it'll like highlight a line and then just drag it open, make it bigger.
Actually, I'm using an iPad.
Okay.
So are you having trouble seeing me? Is that what you're saying? Is everybody having?
I see everybody. I have my camera on. I just don't, you guys aren't seeing me. I don't know why. But I was just trying to help you open the screen to be able to see the amount of people that are here. There's 21 people.
Wonderful. Welcome, everyone.
All
Well,
right.
I'm on my iPad too, and I just took my finger and drug it from left to right. I mean, from right to left, and it showed me 9 more people, but it took away the other 9. So you can screen. It looks like you can slide it back and forth and see the others.
Oh, excellent.
I'm going to need to mute everybody for a second.
Okay.
I will unmute everybody or the council manually. 1
All
minute.
right. Thank you.
No problem.
Oh, thank you.
Oh, boy.
All right. Is Lori Brandon here?
I'm here.
Okay, good. I just needed to see which one you were. And I can rename you now. 1 minute.
Hey, Bruce, there may be a gallery view option that you can elect as well. And I think the gallery view will shrink everybody down in size, but I think it'll multiply the number of people you can see by a magnitude of 3 or 4.
Explain that to me, Frank. On the iPad you're talking?
No, this is on a computer.
Okay, yeah, my iPad can only hold the 9. And when I try to go to other people, I'm afraid I'll lose everybody. Now is not the time for me.
When I go to more, it pulls up meeting settings. Maybe that's where it would minimize meeting settings. Show name.
I don't, when I on my laptop, when I hit the box to go to full screen view, then it had a table of contents on the right that said gallery view. And when you hit gallery view, it displays, well, on my screen, I can get as many as 25 people.
Oh, wonderful. Well,
Oh, so funny, Lori.
I can't tell you. Abby,
That's not fair. That's not fair.
I'm sorry.
hi, Frank. Now I see you.
Abby, can you hear
Here
me?
somewhere.
I can.
Oh,
I am
Lord, I've
having
got
internet issues tonight. My computer is going in and out.
Okay. So does that mean that you won't be able to handle the appointments? Possibly? All right. Jeremy?
Yeah,
Okay. Lori and I had talked about when we get back to the government appointments that she would bring them up independently, mention who is on that particular assembly, and then we would take it from there. Can you do that for me? Because they were all so small, I can't see them at all.
absolutely, no problem.
Thank you. All right. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Village of Tequesta regular council meeting, which is being held using video conferencing due to the spread of the coronavirus or COVID-19. Video conferencing of government meetings has been authorized by State of Florida Governor Ron DeSantis in his executive order number 2020-69. It is Thursday, May 14th, 2020, and it is 6 p.m. Madam Clerk, are you able to call the roll? Keith?
I wonder if she can just call in. I'll work
Yeah.
with her while you guys do that.
Keith can call the roll.
He's muted.
Keith is muted?
Keith shouldn't be muted.
He
Let
may
me
have to
double-
unmute himself.
No, I'd unmute. Oh, there he goes.
There we go. I'm not sure what happened there. All right, I'll be happy to call the roll. Mayor Brennan,
Here.
Vice Mayor Stone,
Here.
Councilmember Brandon,
Here.
Councilmember DeAmbra,
Here,
and Councilmember Prince.
Here.
Thank you, Mayor. All council is present. You have a quorum.
Thank you. The invocation and pledge of allegiance will be led by Councilmember Frank DeAmbra.
Heavenly Father, in our hearts and minds, we plan our course, but we pray that you establish our steps. Let us make decisions based not just on what we know, but let us act with your wisdom. Please place our hearts and minds in your hands so that you may direct us to achieve the very best for our community. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag
Flag
of the United
Amen.
States of America and to the republic
for
for
which
which
it
it
stands,
stands, one nation, under God,
under God,
indivisible, with liberty and justice.
liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. May I have a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Can I pull a couple of points from the consent agenda?
We're not doing consent yet. This is just the actual agenda.
Yep.
Okay, I need a second.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
First item of business is the fiscal year 2019 CAFR, and I am going to turn this over to our Finance Director, Hugh Dunkley, to introduce our guests.
Hugh was having Zoom issues. He just
All
texted
right.
me.
All right, then. Michael Butterman, would you like to go first and introduce your partner?
Unmuting them.
Hello, you can hear me now, correct?
Yes.
Okay, good evening, Madam Mayor, Vice Mayor, and members of the council. For the record, I am Michael Futterman. I serve as the audit partner, and we're here to present our reports on the comprehensive annual financial report for the fiscal year ended September 30th, 2019. With me, who will join in with the presentation, is Brandon Lopez, who served as the audit manager on the audit of the Village of Tequesta. If you would like to follow, we're going to present our auditor's reports. Starting on page 1 is our independent auditor's report, and it's pages 1, 2, and 3. And the first paragraph talks about what we've audited. The second paragraph talks about management's responsibility for the financial statements, and it states management's responsible for the preparation and fair presentation of these financial statements in accordance with accounting principles generally accepted in the United States of America. The third paragraph talks about the auditor's responsibility, and our responsibility is to perform an audit in accordance with generally accepted auditing standards. In addition, because this is a local government in the state of Florida, we also have to follow a second set of audits referred to as government auditing standards. So that's what we have to follow in our audit. On page 2, the most important paragraph for your purposes is the opinion paragraph. And it says, in our opinion, the financial statements referred to above present fairly in all material respects the respective financial position of the governmental activities, the business type activities, each major fund, and the aggregate remaining fund information of the village as of September 30, 2019, and respective changes in financial position and where applicable cash flows for the general fund for the fiscal year then ended in accordance with accounting principles generally accepted in the United States of America. This is known as an unmodified opinion or a clean opinion, which is really the only opinion you would like to be associated with. Moving forward is, if you're following along, the management discussion analysis starts on page 4. And if you read anything in the document, read management's discussion analysis, because what it does, and it's similar to what a public company has to provide, it compares a fiscal year 2019 to fiscal year 2018, but doesn't just mention that balances changed. It explains what balances, why they changed, and the reasons for the change. So it's a very enlightening document which summarizes the entire set of financial statements, which is over 130 pages long. So again, if you're going to read anything, read the MD&A. I'm going to turn it over to Brandon, who's going to go over some of the other reports that we have included in the document, and we'll take any questions you have at any point in time. So, Brandon.
Thank you, Michael. Good evening. Thank you for having us. Like Michael mentioned, part of the audit, we also have to be auditing under the government auditing standards. So if you have the CAFR in front of you, this is going to be towards the back end of the CAFR. We're going to be on page 138. So if you're flipping along, it'll be on printed page 138. And so this report is our independent auditor's report on internal control over financial reporting and compliance in accordance with government auditing standards. And in this report, you'll see it breaks down basically what is considered a finding, what's considered a deficiency in internal control, and what's considered a material weakness or a significant deficiency. So it gives you an explanation on what those things are. But we're glad to report, and we do mention in our letter, which is on the following page, page 139, that there were no internal control significant deficiencies or material weaknesses identified. So we're very happy to let the town know that there were no issues identified during this fiscal year audit. Following along is the next report, which is our management letter in accordance with the rules of the Auditor General of the state of Florida. And this is found on printed page 140. And in this letter, basically we would have to provide you if there are any, previously I discussed any findings. If there are any findings in prior year, what the status of those findings would be. But like we mentioned, there were no such findings that rose to the level of significant deficiency or material weaknesses. Following on to the next page, which is page 141, we go through and we're required to report the financial condition and management of the town. So as part of this, we perform an analysis where we compare the town to some similar other towns and municipalities in their basically a benchmark, which is provided by the state of Florida. And in this, we go through this analysis to see how does the town compare to other similar towns in that category. And if there's anything basically that would identify and signal a significant deteriorating element of the town, we would have to be required to not only disclose it to you, but also to the Auditor General. But in this letter, you'll see as part of that analysis, nothing came to our attention that would signal a deteriorating condition in the town. So we're glad to let the town know that there were no issues identified there. And the last part of this letter is additional matters. And you'll see on the following page, Appendix A, here we have observations and recommendations that we provided to management and to the town that we saw that didn't rise to the level of a, these are just observations and recommendations. So if you go to page 42, there's two items that we identified during our audit. The first being in regards to utility billing rates, we noted from last going forward. And that's the first finding, recommendation. And the second recommendation relates to the town's minimum fund balance policy. The council has adopted a minimum fund balance policy that requires a certain percentage of the fund balance, of unassigned fund balance, be set. And in that policy, it states that the town has 3 years to get back up to what that requirement is. So we noticed that in this fiscal year was the 3rd year of the town being out of compliance of that policy. So in there, you'll see our recommendation in what the town should be doing and then what management's response is. So those are the only two items that we identified, and there were observations. And like I mentioned previously, they do not rise to the level of significant deficiency or material weaknesses. These are just observations and findings and recommendations for the town. And then then we follow along lastly to the last report, which is 144. And this report is the accountant's report on compliance pursuant to section 218.415 of the Florida statutes. And this specifically relates to the town's investments, making sure they're in compliance with the town's policies. And if there were any deviations from that, we would document that and discuss that with the town. But in that letter, you'll see that the word is identified in regards to that Florida statute. So that covers the compliance reports on my end. Michael, I don't know if you had something specific you wanted to mention.
One last thing I wanted to bring up, along with the comprehensive annual financial report, in that same email, you received also a communication letter to those charged with governance. You received one during the planning stage of the audit, and you also received one at the conclusion of the audit. And that was a separate letter, again, in that same email, which we talked about, the village's accounting policies, and the fact that there were some new accounting pronouncements, governmental accounting standards boards pronouncements that were implemented that had very little impact on the financial statements. So that's that separate letter. It talks about the qualitative aspects of accounting practices. And one of the things that's important is that accounting policies are consistently applied from year to year, that policies aren't changed to end up with desired outcomes. And so generally accepted accounting principles really goes on that basis, that accounting practices and policies should be consistent from year to year, and we're reporting that they are consistent. The other things is, we encountered no difficulties in dealing with management and performing and completing our audit. We had no disagreements with management. And in the end, I just wanted to, thank Finance Review Dunkley, Tatiana Recanati, and all the staff of the finance department. As you can imagine, we were wrapping up this audit engagement just after the, pandemic broke, and everyone was now working. More people were working remotely, so it made it a little more of a challenge, but we were still able to, and with the village's assistance, to complete the audit and have it issued by March 31st, which was the original objective. So I wanted to thank, the village and everyone, involved in helping getting it completed, in a timely manner. So if anyone has any questions on that we could address, we'll be happy to address them.
Anyone, council?
I have a couple questions, if you don't mind, Mike and Brandon. I want to focus more on the minimum fund balance policy that we have. 2 months of general fund expenditures. What is that amount?
Excuse me, say that again. It was a little hard to hear you.
What's the amount for the 2 months of general fund operating expenditure? 1 month worth?
Brandon, did you have that in front of you with the CAFR?
I don't have the specific number in front of me. Unfortunately, I can't switch the screens, but I don't have that specific number. But I do know it was, I believe it's around 17%. And I think the number is getting back to, I don't know if you've seen year over year, the village's unassigned balance has increased as it gets back to that requirement. But the specific difference, I don't have that in front of me at the moment. But we can get that information and provide it to you.
I can ballpark it for you without exact, but I mean, the 2 month operating, the 25 or the 2 month operating should be about $2.2 million. Last check, we were at like 1.5, 1.6.
And just to be clear, our expense, I mean, and I know expenses have gone up over the years, but it looks like we haven't been above 2.5 since 2014. And so that's a concern that I've had. I know last year, 2018, I think it got below $1 million. Did you guys recognize that we had this issue last year, or it's just because now it's the third year?
Well, it's because it's the third year now. Your policy allowed you 3 years in order to rectify and replenish the balance. So that's why we made it this year, is because now it's the third year, and we want to make sure that the village is replenish it. I know it's going to be a little tougher right now. What's going on, and no one really knows the extent of the the revenues that are going to be impacted by this pandemic. But you might end up being in a situation where you may not be able to replenish it, but you'll have obviously a viable explanation for not being able to.
And one thing I just did want to mention, in the CAFR, there is a section in regards to the minimum fund balance, and it does state the current position of the village and their policy as well. So I think dating back to 2017 was the first time in the CAFR that it was disclosed that the village was not in compliance, and that they're working towards getting back to that level. So I believe 17 was the first time it was disclosed. 18 last year was year 2, and then year 3, we did see an improvement, but it did not get back to what the requirement was. So that's why we just wanted to just further identify and bring that to your attention.
And since you guys do this as your professional opinion, is 2 months enough?
I mean, yes. I mean, there are cities that have 2 months. There are some that have 3 months. If you look at the Government Finance Officers Association website, they have like best practices, and I believe they have 2 or 3 months on there as a best practice. For some of the cities actually, or local governments actually get their some of their best practices from, it's looking at the Government Finance Officers Association website, because they do have best practices for debt, as it relates to debt, debt margins and capital assets, fund balance policies and things like that. So, it is, again, if you want to be more conservative, then you can easily, increase it to 3 months, or 4. It all depends on what makes you comfortable.
Thank you.
I have the comprehensive annual financial report open now, so if someone had any specific question on it, I can refer to a page, because I have a second screen and I was able to open up the CAFR without losing myself from the Zoom meeting.
Follow-up question to what Kyle asked. Aside from violating our own stated policy, as you mentioned the current economic environment, if we should get to year end, and other than a violation of our own policy, is there any real consequence if we fall short again at the end of this year?
No, it's your internal policy. We're bringing it to your attention because you are obviously the elected body. So we're bringing it to your attention because you actually approve the policies, that are set by the village. So we just bring it to your attention, and it's not a Florida statute requirement. It's not, no other legal requirement other than that was set by you. So we just bring it to your attention.
I just want to make sure everybody understood that and that was clear. Thank you.
Thank you. Vice Mayor, anything else?
I'm good, thank you.
Okay, anybody else on council? Is Lori, has she joined us by phone?
She's
Jeremy?
back.
I think she's back now. I don't know if she's
I'm back
muted or
here.
not. Okay.
Oh, okay. I was just curious if you had any cards to speak on this particular topic on the presentation.
I don't have any cards, but Mr. Tercey has been holding up a sign asking to speak tonight.
All right, and Brad, do you have to unmute everybody?
No, I'm gonna unmute him. Mr. Tercey can speak.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Jim Tercey, 104 Yacht Club Place. First thing I want to say is thank you to the building department, Jose Rodriguez department, for, I'm doing a roof for a gentleman in the Village Tequesta. He's an actually disabled veteran, and you guys are reducing, if not getting rid of, all of his permit fees. And that does not need to get passed on to him. So thank you guys for doing that. That's awesome. I want to talk about a couple things. Number one, there's some signs out, and the signs are, supporting our heroes who we have, and that's fantastic. But, I'd like you guys to comment on where the signs are going for these meetings so people know when they're happening. We've talked about it over and over. I still haven't seen any signs. And like I said, I'm willing to do whatever I have to help.
Mr. Tercey?
Yes.
I'm sorry. This is what we're asking for right now, because we will get to comments by citizens.
Okay.
This is about this particular item that we just discussed.
I'm sorry. I didn't realize that. Nope.
No, that's okay. We follow the same procedure, but you don't have an agenda in your hand probably. So,
And of course, I didn't get able to talk to anybody. So,
okay.
all right.
Yes, we'll get back to you on this.
Thank you.
All right. I guess there's no one else then, Lori?
No, ma'am.
Okay, thank you. Well, I want to thank you, Mr. Futterman, and thank you so much, Brandon, I should say, for bringing this to us. The clean opinion, 2 words, most important opinion or most important words when you come to us is to have that. So when we don't have a management letter that outlines something that has gone wrong, that is amazing. And like you said, I think this is something like 19 years for us. I know this is before your time, but I think this is our 19th year, if I recall, that we have not had an opinion. And so that's wonderful. And I thank you very, very much.
A pleasure. Thank you.
Okay, we can let them go. All right, consent agenda. Before I ask for an approval, is there an item you'd like to pull, Vice Mayor?
I would like to pull number 4, 5, and number 8.
Anyone else?
Yes, I'd like to pull for discussion items 3, specifically the Mock-Roo contracts, 6 and 7.
All right, anyone else? All right. So if we're going to approve the consent agenda, there isn't much left, because I think there's item 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8 that have just been pulled. May I have a motion to approve the consent agenda without those items?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Let's go to item number 3 first. Councilmember DeAmbro.
This is just a general question. We had Mock-Roo perform 2 different functions. One was the water main replacement, and the second thing was an assessment of the well field condition. And I guess this question is really for Attorney Davis. When we're using the same entity for multiple purposes, at what point do we need to be concerned that the sum of the activities exceeds the $25,000 limit? Is there an issue where things can be parceled out into smaller pieces that fall under 25, but when you total them all up, they exceed that number?
He is muted.
So who are you looking to be unmuted? Sorry.
Keith Davis. You can
Attorney
unmute
Davis,
Keith.
Keith Davis?
Yeah, if I can ask, please do not mute yourselves once you're unmuted because you cannot unmute yourself. I have to do it. All right, Keith is
Okay.
unmuted.
I'm back. So these Mock-Roo agreements, we have a continuing contract for engineering services with both Mock-Roo and Kimley-Horn, which were procured pursuant to the CCNA requirements several years ago. And then under each contract, we have work authorizations, and each of these would have been a work authorization under the master contract that was previously approved by the council. So I think in terms of your charter and the $25,000 piece, anytime one of these work authorizations exceeds 25, that would be on a regular approval, but each individual, we wouldn't aggregate the work authorizations because they're separate tasks under a master agreement, which was previously approved. So for purposes of the agenda and this agenda item, the way that master agreement was prepared and the way the work authorizations work is if it's under $25,000 for that work authorization, it would show up on the consent agenda under this agenda item. If it's a larger item, then it's always going to show up as its own separate item for council approval.
Okay, so you're saying, Keith, the key is that we have a master agreement already in place, and that.
Yes, we do.
Okay, all right. I just
If
wanted
I
that
can
clarification.
add to that point real quick, I know that we are looking at that master agreement to put that back out for services and just relook at our engineering services. I mean, it's possible Mock-Roo and Kimley-Horn will be selected again, but I know that we will be putting one out again to look at that process.
Okay. Thank you, Keith. Thank you, Jeremy.
All right, may I have a motion to approve item 3?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, let's go to I. Let's go to item number 4, and I believe that's Vice Mayor.
Yes, I just wanted to bring this up. So this is the nomination for boards and committees. I guess I wonder maybe if someone can help me explain this process. It looks like that the chairs have a certain date that their terms expire, but the other members can be appointed on an annual basis. Is that correct?
Each of the boards and committees have differing term limits for the board members, and the chair and regular members will have the same term limit, but alternates generally have a lesser time frame for their term limit.
So is there anybody that their term has expired?
These people here on the reappointment list under Resolution 1320, all of their terms have expired. If you approve this resolution tonight, their terms will be for the Planning and Zoning Board through 23, the General Pension Board through 2022, and for Public Safety through 2022.
And did we promote trying to see if any other residents wanted to participate in any of the boards?
We do not, unless there is a vacancy. When somebody resigns from a board, that's when we promote a vacancy. If there is a member that is serving on a board and has done so with good attendance and good service to the community, we open it up back to them if they want to serve again.
So I obviously know the individuals that are on this list, and they've all served our village with honor and done a great job. I'm just concerned that it's also we should continue to promote involvement within the community to participate, and obviously I think the council would have the decision whether or not to appoint or approve or not approve on an annual basis, but I would recommend that we try to get more involvement within our community.
That is something that we can definitely do if council so wishes.
So I guess, Kyle, let me ask a question with that. Sorry, Councilman. So, I mean, I guess your intent would be to, when appointments come up, to put out a notice asking anybody to apply, and then council would decide either the incumbent or any newcomers, and you guys would approve or choose or vote on those, any newcomers versus the incumbent? Is that what your intent is?
That would make, yes, that would make sense. I guess we do this every May. So if for some reason, if we can, in April, make that selection to, I mean, who we want to move forward with for each committee, that would be nice. Assuming that we don't have anything on the environmental committee for this particular time, it's so new. But I would imagine that at some point that would be another committee that we would want to follow this procedure.
I don't think the Environmental Advisory Committee has terms. I'd have to look at that resolution more in depth, but I don't believe that y'all gave them term limits.
I'm thinking, Vice Mayor, the people that are on these committees now at this time, these various, they've been contacted and we're following a pattern that we've had, or a policy that we've had, if you will. I would maybe suggest for this year that we let this go, and then in the next meeting or in workshop, we could get everybody, council at that time, to decide if we want to go in that direction. In terms of opening it up, I think it's an excellent suggestion. It could be something that could go out, but I would hate to do this now after all these people are anticipating that they're going to be reappointed.
The only thing I wanted to add to this conversation was that, and Lori knows this from my time prior to the council, but people are always free to come in and let Lori know of their interest on serving on a particular committee. I know prior to being on the council, I did that with respect to the audit committee, the pension committees. And when those opportunities came up, you know, Lori notified me to say, hey, there's an opportunity coming up here if you have a continuing interest. So there's nothing that prohibits anyone from expressing that interest and kind of being put on a list should an opportunity arise. But I understand where you want to take it and take a more proactive role. And as the mayor suggested, I think that's a good subject for discussion.
Councilmember DeAmber is right. We don't have people knocking down the doors wanting to volunteer on the various committees. But when we do, we do put them forward, and I can create a list of people that are interested in serving. We can put it forth every year if you want. We can do it in any manner that you wish.
Well, this past year, we had a vacancy on the planning and zoning board. I think we've had close to 8 applicants that participated in that.
Right, and y'all you amended the ordinance for that so that there was an 8th position on that committee.
But I guess what I'm getting at is there was a good report and results of individuals that wanted to participate. Once we just let the community know there was an opportunity. So I think that's really important that we, moving forward, at least have that announcement out there, and don't just assume that we have good people out there that like to participate.
I agree with that. I would just like to maybe start it next year instead of go back and do it now. Is there any other comments on item number 5?
Mayor, if I could
Yes.
Interject on the employee pension boards. They
Yes.
both have a 5th member appointee. This year it just happens to be Michael Rhodes. That is not an appointment that comes from council. You just ministerially approve it. That is an appointment that is made by the 2 pension boards. So that would never come forth to council except for ministerial appointment.
All right, thank you. There's no other discussion. May I have a motion to approve item number 4?
So moved.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 All right, item number 5, also, I think the Vice Mayor?
Yes, number 5, this is a Matt, I wonder if you can maybe talk to us about this concrete pipe that's being launched. And I was curious, maybe Member Prince could maybe add his insight on the construction side. What his thoughts are.
Kyle, you're breaking up terribly. I'm not sure why.
Yeah, buddy, I'm having a hard time hearing you, Kyle. I'm not getting everything that you're saying.
I'll try to do my best. I'm speaking up as loud as I can. So this is a pipe lining project, about, I guess, over 650 feet. And Bruce, I was curious if maybe you can give your input, maybe after Matt kind of explains what it is and what they're doing.
Well, as far as lining the pipes go, Kyle?
Yeah.
There's different methods and stuff of it, and you're familiar with it probably as I am, but I used to be the pipe guru. But y'all never really did any lining. But basically, there's a system where you go in and they just go in with a material, and it lines the inside of the pipes, and it can extend the life of an existing pipeline. Different products and stuff, but up to 40 to 50 years. So they can go in there rather than taking a pipe out and replacing it. You just go in there and line it up with these different applications. And it's a lot less costly of replacing the pipe in lieu of having to tear everything out. Sometimes your roads and your sidewalks and landscaping and irrigation, they just go right down that pipe, clean it all out, line it all, and bam, you're done. And it's become real popular because it's very cost effective to do that.
Yeah, I think I would agree that it is very cost effective on doing that. I would be curious if there's any type of warranty that the manufacturer is offering. And I know Matt is muted now, but maybe he would know that answer.
Brad, can you unmute Matt, please?
He's unmuted.
Okay.
Yeah, good evening. So as far as this specific project on Seabrook Road, anytime we have a replacement that's coming up, we evaluate all the different options that are available to us to replace it, including open cut, pipe bursting, lining, and then what's presented here, cured in place, CIPP, which is cured in place lining. This particular segment runs underneath a series of, it's on the west side of Seabrook, just north of Tequesta Drive. This particular segment of pipe runs underneath a series of very mature oak trees with a couple laterals that run underneath Seabrook Road. When taking that into account, the cured in place option was the most cost effective. We did, prior to moving forward with it, we cleaned and TV inspected the pipe to make sure that it was capable of being lined. There are instances where there are disjointed pipes or deterioration that's so severe that lining isn't an option. Thankfully, in this case, we did have it cleaned, evaluated, and determined that it was one that was not for the IPP. As far as the warranty, it's the same standard warranty for most construction projects, which is a year. The lifespan of cured in place pipe, you'll get different options, but the range is right in line with what Councilmember Prince has said. There's the material is it's a felt liner. It's a resin impregnated felt liner that pulled through a cleaned pipe, and then that is cured most often with hot water, sometimes with steam, and sometimes with UV. Those are typically for the larger pipes when the amount of hot water that would be required to cure the pipe is just prohibitive. So that's the nature of this project. There's a number of pipeline projects, stormwater replacement projects coming up, and each one we're looking at specifically for the most cost effective that provides the best value to the village on a case by case basis. I hope that covers most of what you're looking for.
I have one more question though. This is in an area that is going to be near right across the, or really connected to our rec center. is the building size of the rec center changing, or any site work that might impact the size of the storm drain that would require us to change the size of the storm drain during that construction?
Yeah, so this is the rec center would be a little bit north of this particular line. Here I have, I'm not able to see if if the stormwater that's generated on that site does come through this piping. I have been in contact with the site civil engineer who's working with REG for this, for the rec center project. And so I'm familiar with the firm, and we've been working together on both the stormwater and the water requirements for the expansion to that, to make sure that what they're designing around is in line. There are a number of if you're expanding the impervious area, you're obviously increasing the potential for stormwater input into the MS4 or municipal separate stormwater system. But there are options on site options that minimize that peak flow that would prevent you from having to continue building larger pipes. The pipes are sized for the peak flow that's coming through, and if you have more flow coming through, if you're able to mitigate those peaks that are coming out of it, then you might actually have a smaller demand on your piping than you previously had, based on what you designed on site.
That would be my only concern, is that we approve this, they go ahead and line it, and then we have to rip out a portion of it in a year or so. And so I would just want to make sure that that is looked at before moving forward with this project.
Yep, that's an excellent point. And like I mentioned, I've been working closely with the engineering firm that is working underneath REG on this particular design to make sure that everything is in line.
Kind of understand your concern being because of the new civic center, buddy, that it might put more demand and stuff on the system.
Yeah, based on the drawing, it is right there next to the street. I mean, it's right there.
Right.
So yeah, there might be some site changes or site improvements that will require a larger pipe, and it'd just be silly for us to line it and rip it out within the year.
Matt, how urgent is this? Matt,
They
how
should be
urgent-
required to contain the water on site, Matt, for that particular facility. I mean, when you design a commercial site, you know, your responsibility is to maintain your runoff off your impervious areas into a retention holding area. And then, of course, you do have some overflow that would eventually wind up into the city's storm system. But that's pretty much you're required by code, aren't you, to be able to contain that most of that water on site?
Yeah, that's accurate. If I remember right, I believe the current village code requires 95% to be retained on site.
Right.
And then that the balance, based on a certain design year storm, and then the balance of that is allowed to be, on the current, is allowed to be leave the site and enter the villages, or potentially the counties or FDOT's MS4 system.
Matt, let me get in here, okay, guys? How urgent is this to be done tonight, if you're going to be looking at it again as the vice mayor is suggesting? Do we have to do this tonight, or can we pull this for one more month?
There isn't any there isn't anything that's imminent that
Okay.
would prohibit it being pushed a month.
Yeah, I just want to move it along. If it pleases the council then, so that there can be a little more investigation on this, would we be able to pull item number 5?
I will approve that.
I'm fine with it.
Okay, all right. We will then pull this item from it. We won't approve this tonight. Okay, item number 6, also, I think Councilmember Giambra.
Keith, do we need a motion and a second for them to table that to June?
Is there council consensus?
Yes.
Yes.
That's fine. Thank
Yes.
you.
Okay.
Yes.
Item 6, I'll be quick on this. Matt, I understand that the utility permit put the burden of relocating the discharge line on the utility, so we're responsible for payment. But I noticed in the report, it says that this is going to be a temporary relocation, and we're still discussing the permanent location, which indicates we're going to have a second move and a second cost element. Any chance that this can all be done in one fell swoop, or is the rebuild of the bridge and all the rest of it such that that's not going to be possible?
So there's been a lot of meetings, and long prior to my coming on board here related to this. There's a lot of factors that pinch in where this disposal is. In a perfect world, we could move it once to the north of the bridge, and leave it there. But unfortunately, immediately to the north of the bridge is where the aquatic preserve begins. And so in order to get this temporary move out of the way of construction, we are getting some temporary variances that allow the disposal location to be moved to the north side of the bridge out of the area of construction that allows the zone of influence to temporarily enter into the aquatic preserve. And I'll be honest, this is all semantics, and we're talking a matter of yards.
I was going to say, we're only talking about less than 100 feet, right?
We are, but those 100 feet are incredibly important to the decision makers in Tallahassee.
Okay.
So there's they're allowing us to temporarily encroach, but we have to move it back and remove that encroachment once the bridge is relocated.
So the answer is we'd like to be able to do this in an efficient way, but the answer is no.
Yes.
I think so. Thank you.
All right.
Any other questions on this item?
Nope.
May I have a motion to approve item 6?
So moved.
Motion.
All in
Second.
favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, now we go on to, let me see,
Item 7.
also number 7, Councilmember Tiambra.
Jeremy, just a very quick question on this. This interlocal agreement, do we actually derive any financial benefit from this, or is this simply an agreement that we enter into to show support for the county and the rest of the communities to be a good partner with them?
Be a good partner. There is if you're over a certain demographic, and household, income, some cities are what we call entitlement cities. Like I think Jupiter is one. Don't quote me on the cities that get money directly from the federal government. If you're not large enough or you don't qualify, you can qualify through this larger area, which is what this is. This agreement, basically allows us to partner with other cities, so that way some of that money can come out. I was told we don't have any areas that can participate, so this is us being a good neighbor and being a good partner with this. And if we ever do, find some areas that will qualify, criteria changes or whatnot, then we could apply because we have this agreement.
All right, so just so we're being politically expedient. Okay.
Are there any other questions on this item? If
No.
not, may I have a motion to approve item 7?
So moved.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, now we have one last one. This is the Vice Mayor, item number 8.
Yeah, just real quickly, and maybe Hugh can answer this. Want to make sure that this is talking about the 401k for, I guess, 2 employees, and we have a village contribution of 10%. Is that correct? 10?
Was Hugh able to get back on?
Yeah, he's on. Brad,
Yeah,
can you unmute him?
I'm finding him. 1 second. All right, Hugh.
Yes, can you hear me, Vice Mayor?
Yes, sir.
Yes, the 10% is exactly what the village is contributing currently. And this item here is trying to synchronize what the village is contributing to what the pension plan states, the plan adoption agreement. They both have to agree.
It's a real I'm gonna summarize. It's a housekeeping issue that wasn't done when this plan was We've been paying them 10%, but it said 9. And so
9% on the plan.
it's to coordinate those two efforts.
Is 10% reasonable?
I think it is when you compare that to if, for instance, if they were in the police pension plan, would be contributing upwards to 26% of their pay. So it's relatively reasonable from our standpoint.
From a cost perspective, maybe not a competitive, is it reasonable from a competitive stance? Local municipalities, is that something similar? I know in the private sector that is not reasonable.
I think from a cost perspective, if we take the FRS, for instance, the IRIS group has a slightly higher contribution percentage. So I would say that it's lower than what the IRIS groups typically get contributed to their pension plans. However, in 2018, I believe it was, those two members did get an opportunity to opt into the defined benefit plan, which they did not.
Okay, I just want to make that clarified. Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
All right, if there's no other questions, may I have a motion to approve item 8?
Motion?
Second.
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All right, fine. Let's move on now to communications from citizens. And I believe Mr. Kersey wanted to speak.
Going to find them, sorry. There's quite a few people. All right, Mr. Tersey can speak.
Gotcha. All right. Hello, boys and girls, ladies and gentlemen. So first thing I want to do is thank the building department. I'm doing a roof for a gentleman in one of our residents who's a disabled veteran, and the building department is waiving partial or all of his fees, which is a great thing, which allows me to pass it on. Second thing, I want to thank Doug Chambers for taking action when called upon at all times for everything that he does. He works hard. I've seen him out in wedding in the community and so forth. The third thing I want to talk about is the signs. There's nobody knows what's going on. I mean, I shouldn't say nobody knows. Obviously, people know what's going on, but not everybody knows what's going on. Like you guys to comment on why there are still no signs allowing people to know when there's council meetings or workshops or any of that stuff. I think it's extremely important that people have an opportunity to listen in and so forth. Fourth thing I want to talk about, I'm a 26-year resident. I live at 104 Yacht Club Place. I'll be here for another 26 years or longer. Fourth thing I want to talk about is the condition of the community. And I'll speak with Doug about this because Joe's no longer here, which I think is a good thing because I think he was a lot more lax than the previous people that enforced the.
Mr. Tersey, can we keep personalities out of this, please?
What
If you don't
personalities?
mind, we just have a policy ourselves that we don't actually go after any particular employee. So if we could
He's
just
not an
move on.
employee anymore. He left. He's no longer with
Well,
us.
thank you for that in the
Okay.
past, but let's keep going.
Okay, so anyway, I received a letter and I'm going to read it to you if you guys will bear with me. It says, "Dear Mark and Marie Sapphire, 79 Yacht Club Place, Tequesta Country Club. Copy of this letter was sent to all homeowners that must drive past your home. The correspondence is a group effort on behalf of every neighbor and homeowner in Tequesta Country Club. The issue is that the way your property has fallen into exterior squalor. This week, the weeds and undergrowth are so out of control, it is an eyesore. Is there some sort of problem? Is there a health consideration or something? Do you need help? If so, reach out and we are certain you would get volunteers to assist in the effort. Yard maintenance is pretty basic, pulling the weeds, trimming the bushes, edging the driveway and street, etc. Simple things that make difference not just to you, but every single person who lives here or drives down the street. Please have some respect for the people you live amongst. for many of us, our biggest lifetime investment are our primary residents. We can't afford to have our property values diminish by neglect. We all moved here in part because the beautiful neighborhood and everyone needs your help to keep it that way. Regard your neighbors. So that was a letter that I received. So apparently somebody wrote a letter to this person, and I got to tell you, it's a great letter. If I wrote it, it would have been a lot more harsh than that. I'd love for somebody to go take a look at 79 Yacht Club Place and see how out of control it is. It is definitely devaluing our area.
Lori, are we keeping the timer?
Yes, the timer is going off now.
Okay,
Maybe y'all can't hear it on that end.
all right.
Comments?
Okay. Well, sir, I think what we're talking, you talked about a couple of things. I think when you say there's not enough signs, advertising, I guess we go back to the same thing. We have it on our website. We have it on our Facebook page. I believe, Jeremy, are we still putting the signs up while we have less staff in public works? Have we changed that?
No, we're still putting signs up outside.
Okay.
What signs that talk about the meetings?
Yeah.
I haven't seen one. Where are they?
Right out front of Village Hall, there's one.
And when does that go up? So if you live in the village of Tequesta and you don't drive right past the Village Hall, you don't see it?
Right. I mean, if you don't drive past Village Hall, I would offer check the website or Facebook, or, you know, I mean, I
Or your water bill. I know, I've never seen a water bill in 26 years. I don't have Facebook, and people don't have computers. It's not fair.
Mr. Tercey, are you aware of the notification systems that we offer that can come directly to your email, that can come directly to your phone, that can come directly to your text?
I am not. And so you have to have an email, you have to have a cell phone that accepts texts.
Or a telephone.
Okay.
Or mailbox.
Mailbox. Are you mailing letters telling people when the meetings are?
If you don't have a phone or a computer, you're not going to get an email to your water bill. It's going to be mailed to your mailbox.
Okay, so you are not willing to put signs up to let people know that there are meetings happening. We've talked about this. I've talked about the moorings. I know exactly when their HOA meetings are because they put a sign out at every corner going into their neighborhood. You can't miss what time and what day their signs are.
Thank you. I don't think we have anything more on that topic, sir. I think at this time, anyway, I hear what you're saying. There are so many ways to be notified. I think that our clerk and our manager have done an excellent job doing that, and hopefully you'll subscribe to one of the many notification systems that we have.
I'm not worried about me. I'm worried about all the other 6,000 people in our village that knew nothing about the road or the no wake zone.
Okay.
That you guys
Thank you.
decided on.
A long time ago. That is true.
Yeah, a long time ago that we still live with the daily problems every single day.
Thank you, Mr. Tercey.
You're welcome. Thank you.
All right.
I got a question for Jim before we leave. Jim, this is Councilman Prince. Are you concerned that the residents at 79 Yacht Club Place is in violation of the city, landscaping codes?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know what they are, but I mean, this is, if for some reason the city's landscaping codes allow it to be the way it is, it's nothing that the village used to allow for the last 26 years, except for, handful of years.
So Jose, that would go to code compliance. Can you follow up with this, please?
Yeah, he has sent me a message saying he will look at it first thing in the morning.
All right, thank you.
There's a house, there's the back of another house that's actually on Fairview East. Their back of their house is nothing but an overgrown mess also. And it's so if you turn onto Yacht Club Place, there's a house on the corner on the left, and then the house next to it is really just a spot, an area that has nothing but it's the back of the person's house, and it's over their fence, and it is nothing but an overgrown area of
Okay. All right, Mr. Terzi, I think what would be best in the future so that you can feel that you're getting somewhere, it would be to call our code compliance department. If you feel, you say this has been going on for a while, and of course, we don't want that to occur. So if you can call them or the manager, I'm sure we'll get right on it for you.
Okay,
All right, thank you.
thank you.
Lori, do we have anyone else, or Brad?
I have a YouTube comment, or actually a question from someone on YouTube. Walter Harris has asked, when will the laid off public works, water plant, and code enforcement staff be recalled to work?
Mr. Allen?
Well, we are looking at those items. I mean, they were laid off because we didn't have work for them at the time. As we get back to additional, the relaxed restrictions and able to offer a full complement of services, we will look at those positions again.
Thank you.
That is the only comment on YouTube, and I have not received any other citizen comment cards via email.
All right, Brad, do you have anybody that you can see that is signaling in some way?
I don't, but I can open it up to see if there is anybody else.
All right.
All right, everybody's unmuted.
Good evening. If you're not going to speak, I'm going to ask you to mute your phones if you can. And if there is someone that would like to speak, just please state your name and address.
No.
It doesn't appear that we have anyone stating their name or address at this time, Brad. We can close.
Okay, give me about 15 seconds.
Sure.
Okay.
Thank you. Moving on to communications from council. Does anyone in particular want to start? All right, let me say Councilmember Brandon.
Hi.
Hi.
Not much, just that keep moving forward. Everyone's doing a great job. I think we can only go up from here, right? That is all.
All right, thank you. Vice Mayor.
I'll talk about two different things. I was on a walk along Country Club this past weekend. Thankful that we're moving forward with that particular project. I happened to run into a resident who, before COVID-19 started in our village, he made a tough decision to move his wife into a long-term care facility.
To where, Kyle? I'm sorry, we can't hear you.
To a long-term care facility.
Okay.
And he hasn't had the ability to really see her, really talk to her since this whole process began. And I just want to encourage people to reach out to their neighbors and talk to them and help wherever you can. There is lots of people are having there's pain going on, so reach out to your neighbors. And, second note, I was able to Josh, the president of JTAA, the executive board, reach out to them. I think that the Village of Tequesta should be represented with them, and not necessarily on their board, but be involved with trying to help support the success of that rec league within our community. And so I know that one recommendation they made was to try to help them find coaches, and I don't know if that's the council. I'd like to continue to be in communication with them and try to find ways to connect our resources and ability to communicate to our residents some of the needs that they have to make sure that their overall organization is successful.
Thank you. All right, Councilmember D'Ambra.
It looks like we lost Councilmember D'Ambra.
All right, hopefully he will be able to call in, or does somebody have, Jeremy, do you have his text?
I can text him. Yep, I can make contact with him.
All right, maybe you can get a phone. Let's move on then to Councilmember Prince.
I'm good. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you. I just want to let everybody know that there is a Tequesta State Farm agent who made arrangements for a $1,500 grant to come in. And it's coming through the Tequesta Friends of Public Safety, but the Fire and Police Department, which is supported by that, are putting together a care package for seniors 65 and over. And included in that would be some paper products, a mask. In fact, Pat Watkins has agreed to sew masks. We're looking at probably serving 60 people, up to 60 people in this program. Sanitizer for their hands, and also soap. So a lot of these things are still a little difficult to get, but we would be offering it to them. We'll be going and rolling it out so that we get as much coverage in the village as we possibly can, asking, for instance, what you're saying, Vice Mayor, that everybody can take care of each other. So if your next door neighbor is 65 and older and may not be on the computer or whatever, they can pull that name and let us know about that. So that was something that was very helpful. All right. I don't have anything other than that. We would turn it over at this point to our standing reports, and that would be Village Attorney Davis first.
Thank you, Mayor. In terms of the continued state of emergency, on Friday, Executive Order 114 was issued, which basically extended everything out another 60 days in terms of the state level declaration, which includes Order 69 that allows us to meet in this digital fashion. So it appears, at least at this point, we still have 2 more months that state level order will be in place. And this will remain an option for us during that period of time.
Okay, any
Thank
questions?
you.
Any questions for Keith? All right, let's go back now. Jeremy.
Mayor, I believe we have Frank back by phone. Let me see if this is him.
Yep, it's
Frank?
Yep, I'm here. I don't know what happened when you went to unmute everybody. I lost the internet connection. So.
Okay, all right, thank you. Next would be the manager's report.
Okay. Just a few notes. So sidewalk replacement project that Mr. Stone referenced while ago on Country Club Drive, that is set to begin May 18th. I know we've put a lot of information out already about that, and hopefully everybody's preparing for that to begin. Virgin Trains is going to be doing, or All Aboard Florida will be doing some construction on the railroad track for that intersection, beginning work on Saturday. There's going to be one side will be closed, and there'll be a period for about 15 minutes that both sides will be closed while they actually move it. So Saturday, you'll see some additional traffic on Tequesta Drive, some traffic, we'll say barriers. We are starting a Memorial Day door decorating campaign. If you haven't seen our website or Facebook or anything like that, check it out, May 5th through May 25th. So hopefully people participate in that, kind of a fun event, get people involved. We should see, and I know you guys have seen some of the email that I sent, we could see an additional truck traffic on Country Club Drive. Martin County's bridge they were having to post their weight limits now. They have put some signage filtering them our way if their trucks are too heavy. So that we're still working through that situation, but we do plan on workshopping that in May to see if there's some additional comments or thoughts on how we can help minimize that impact. We're probably looking at 15 or 16 trucks a day, according to the traffic study. But it's heavier trucks, not the lighter trucks that will be the concern. So we don't know, we can't differentiate between heavy and light. We just know there's about 15 additional trucks that will be heading our way because of that. You know, as you know, we have an ordinance that doesn't allow them go over the bridge. So it creates a whole bunch of different, I guess, issues for us because, you know, if they head this way on Country Club, there's really nowhere to turn around. So we are going to meet a workshop staff, Doug and I and Chief Medina. We're going to work through some of those scenarios and This was pretty new. I mean, it's kind of hot off the press, so we're still working through that. For those of you guys that don't know, we are extending the restaurants an opportunity to increase their seating outside. We hope that, this is an opportunity for us to help those restaurants recover through this COVID. They can request through the special events application. We will look at those individually. They still have to meet ADA access. They can reduce some of their parking. So we'll look at those individually. The fire chief, police chief, myself will review those permits, make sure that they're still, that it's still able to meet those ADA requirements and our public needs. We are looking at canceling our summer program. I think Greg has some good alternatives. To realistically meet all those CDC recommendations, we would need additional facilities. There are still many unknowns with the coronavirus. I mean, if you guys have seen over the weekend, the kids are, there's some different symptoms that kids are showing now, even if they were asymptomatic after they're stopped their carriers of it. They're related to COVID. Nobody knows for sure yet. So, the idea that kids are immune or safe from it is not necessarily true. At least that's the stories that are coming out. That's still pretty new. Our facility is not up to par. We only have one large room at the rec center, so that creates some problems with less than 10 people or social distancing. Of course, the cleaning supplies and additional product that we would need. Of course, pre-screening and proper coverings for youth and staff. Our parks are only limited right now. We can't have more than 3 people on the basketball court. None of our playgrounds are allowed to be open. While those could open between now and June 8th, it's really unknown, as Keith just said, that, they extended that order for, a period of time. So, there's no one really has a crystal ball for these things. So, with all these things, all these unknowns, looking at some of the other camps, we just felt it was, the best interest of the village and our citizens, health, safety, and welfare. I've talked with our emergency management Chief Trube. He suggests there's a lot of obstacles we'd have to tackle before we do it. Speaking with Merlene and just some of the risk management from the village standpoint, it's a hard decision to make, and it wasn't likely. I mean, I've talked with staff, and Greg, I probably talked more with Greg in the last couple of weeks than I talked to him the first 6 months I was here. So it was with careful consideration. We're looking at some alternatives other than the summer camp. Couple other side notes. I know the department heads, they usually give you a report. I've provided those via email to you guys, but just a couple of highlights that they have. We'll keep the same format where if you have questions with their report, you're more than welcome to ask those, unless the mayor wants to open it up to them. But this week is Police Officers Appreciation Week, and so we want to recognize those police officers. I think is very important what they do. They have a calling that is beyond just the imagination to be able to put that badge on and go out there and do what they do. I have a family of cops in my family, or in my family. There's cops. My brother's a cop. My dad was a cop. My sister was a cop. So I really appreciate what they do, and it's time to recognize them. So if you see one of those officers out there, please give your congratulations and recognize those. Our police department was recognized by the Florida's Attorney General's office, Ashley Moody, for the program that we were doing with the birthday parties and celebrating the youth in our community when they were kind of stuck in their house and they couldn't have birthday parties. Our police officers have been there to help celebrate with 27 young residents, and it's been a great program, and we are recognized from the Florida Attorney General's office. So another kudos for them. A couple of significant events on May 3rd. We had Officer Baldwin was flagged down along with Officer Hoystruck, discovered that a subject had been overdosed at the Walgreens or the CVS, and they performed CPR on that individual, and then Tequesta Fire and Rescue was able to administer additional life-saving techniques. So, what a great thing to have the officers, being able to do that, and of course Tequesta Fire. So having our own fire rescue in our city and our own police officers in our city is is a huge asset that we have. Also, Lieutenant Pike for water rescue late in April with a kayaker. He was out on the boat, Marine Patrol. Talking about another huge asset to the village, and we're surrounded on water by water in 3 different sides. So having that marine unit is super important. Also, additionally, Lieutenant Pike and Officer Loney and COP, Citizen Patrol Officer Mike Hamper, did another water rescue during, I believe it was during the Bush Bash or the Trump Bash. They hit a sandbar, so they were able to provide CPR or administer some first aid for that individual. So having that boat patrol was a huge asset for us, as well as the rescues that the fire department was in with those 2 incidents. They did some administering COVID tests to our special needs population here in Tequesta. I think that's worthy of noting out of their reports. They to be able to provide that service to our citizens, our special needs citizens. They've been extremely busy with COVID and monitoring everything that goes along with that. And so I appreciate their effort, their staff over there. And just the last couple notes on utilities, our national metering service that is installing the meters, they are back in action as of last week. They've 1,154 meters have been replaced to date, which is 48%. They have another 1,228 remaining. So only minor issues reported to date. And so it's been I'll say semi-smooth process. Sorry, Matt, if I jinxed that, but we haven't had a lot of issues. And so the other thing they've in this past month, they did have to repair 3 service line breaks and repaired. So those guys a lot of times don't get the recognition they deserve, but our water department guys are always on the spot and do a great job out there too. So with that, that's my report. If there's any questions, I'll be more than happy to answer.
All right. We did receive most of that written in a written report, so we did get to hear that. And we have seen Chief Truth's, which is very, very detailed. So unless there's questions for any of the 3 directors and police chief, fire chief, anyone have any questions for them?
The only question that I would have for Jeremy is specifically more for the budget with regards to maybe loss of revenue that were anticipated for this fiscal year. That's not, I think it's going to be not as high and might create some issues for cost cutting of some sort.
What's the specific question you have? I mean, I heard the rest of it about cost cutting efforts. If you can give me a specific question.
More of, are we seeing our revenues being decreased because of the current economy?
We are anticipating our revenues being down. We see it probably as far as collection of service fees, of course, in the building department, probably first and foremost. The revenues from the state sharing, we haven't seen projections yet, but I will say that we do have a month of less collections on the sales tax revenue. We are anticipating to hopefully by June, along with ad valorem projections, but hopefully the state will come out with some projections that we can use for the state sales tax and be able to do that. I mean, we're kind of operating on a middle of the road scenario right now with budget, but it's very flexible, fluid right now. But we are anticipating a pretty significant drop in revenues, and so we're going to have to plan accordingly with budgets. And it's going to be tough. Our main goal of budget this year will be to make sure that we maintain or exceed, our services that we have. I mean, we don't want to lose any services, but we will do everything we can to cut the budget so we can present a balanced budget without cutting services.
Okay, thank you.
With that in mind, I just wanted to add one element. I was going to bring this up in any other matters, but since the question's been asked, I would like to see this council have a special workshop meeting in June. Well, we have the workshop scheduled, I guess, the first Monday in June. I would like to see a second meeting that same week dedicated to nothing but the budget in terms of the current year, what we're looking at for the next year, what you're seeing in the way of budget requests from the department heads. We used to start this process a little bit earlier. I understand with the current circumstances, it may be delayed a bit, but I don't think we should be pushing it much past another 30 days. So I'd like to see us have 2 workshops that week, one solely dedicated to the budget itself.
Jeremy, I'm sorry, the June 2nd workshop, do we have anything on that at all? Because I'm having surgery on the 3rd. So I wouldn't be able to make that.
We do have
second.
a couple of proposals to be on there. I believe the mobility, we were talking about the streaming of meetings, were a couple that just come to mind. So we do have a couple. I mean, are they, required? I mean, I'm sure we could figure out another way, maybe bump the meeting up a week, into May. I mean, that's at your guys' discretion if you guys want to do that.
Yeah, we could do one meeting the week before and one meeting at the current scheduled time.
This is my only thoughts with that, Frank, is that, we won't see revenues until June, the first week of June, probably. At least that's what they're telling us. My other question is, I mean, right now, we're just now getting the department's request. I mean, I guess, do you want us to filter those before you see them, or you want me to just hand everything to you guys? I mean, so typically the process that I'm familiar with is I get it down to a budget that is presentable to you guys. If there's some decision points or some different directions, obviously we talk through those as a group, but what you're proposing, it sounds like, is that I'm just going to dump everything to you guys and let you guys decide.
Well, we've done it both ways in the past. We've actually had a situation where we actually saw what the departments requested prior to the manager working them over in totality. And we've seen it the other way too, where, the manager's gone through and